Hello and welcome to today's webinar. On behalf of AOE, I would like to thank you all for attending. I am your moderator, Annie McKenna, Editor of International Airport Review. Today's speakers will be Kian Gould, CEO and founder of AOE, and Adil Raihani, who is the Digital Travel Retail Advisor and former Senior Vice President of Commercial at Vienna Airport, the Blueprint Partnership, and Adil Raihani Consulting. Following their presentations, we will move on to a live question and answer session where you can pose questions to today's speakers. Please remember you can submit questions at any point during the webinar using the Ask a Question panel situated below the player. So without hesitation, may I pass over to today's keynote speakers, Kian Gould and Adil Raihani.
Good morning, everyone. This is Kian Gould from AOE, and I would like to introduce you also to Adil.
Good morning, Adil Raihani. Thank you for joining. I've been working for the last 25 years in travel retail, and for the last 2.5 years working very closely with AOE on digital transformation in airports.
So thank you everyone for joining this morning and this afternoon for those in Asia, and hopefully also a few late owls from the US. We've had an amazing almost 500 registrants for this webinar today, so that's very humbling and exciting for us. And so without further ado, I would like to start talking about the topic of today, which is securing growth by digitalizing airport non-aviation revenues. Very briefly, to start at the beginning, I would like to just very briefly mention who AOE is. Many of you might have heard about us in some of the publications or at some of the conferences we've spoken at in the last 2 years. Since we came to the scene, we are now the world's #1 travel retail digitalization company. We are live at multiple airports and airlines around the world, and there are more than 24 airports and airlines currently doing projects in different stages with us. Without further ado, I want to continue now on the topic of today, and that is the disruption of non-aviation revenues and where we're heading as airports around the world, and how can we use digitalization to prevent such disruption to go further. Where do we start? Obviously, airports have in the past been primarily bound to certain revenue streams. A primary one definitely being parking, especially metropolitan airports have always focused a lot of their non-aviation revenues from parking. Of course, the second biggest, or in some airports, the biggest one, has also been airport shopping, always bound on the premise that airport shopping is an impulse purchase. People have time to kill at the airport. They have the so-called dwell time, the golden hour, where they walk around and shop potentially, and this has been a major revenue driver for airports, obviously. And the third one has been airport advertising. For smaller airports, more important than for bigger airports typically, but a lot of airport advertising has been bound on the premise that premium passengers fly, and therefore it's premium advertising space, especially for luxury brands and high-end companies. So advertising has been an important one. But where are we today? Today we are in a world where we have 4.8 billion mobile devices. Actually, we only have 4.2 billion toothbrushes in the world. So that shows we are more connected than concerned about our hygiene. And that has definitely had a big impact on spending behavior and usage behavior of passengers passing through airports. Today's parking passengers have a lot more choice. They can Uber to the airport, they can Lyft to the airport. We've seen some airports see their parking sales decline by up to 15% in the last years, and that is definitely a significant impact. And so that parking revenues are not a guarantee going forward. And if we're looking at 10 years into the future, there is a very high likelihood that a pretty large percentage of drivers will actually be driven to the airport and then the cars drive themselves back home, whether that's via rideshare automated vehicles or your own personal autonomous vehicles. This definitely poses a big risk to parking. And so there is certainly a risk that today's passengers are very much preoccupied with their phones. They're preoccupied with what they can do on the devices. They're no longer doing shopping at the airport and going through the airport in such a manner. And if you're thinking about travel retail as the second biggest contributor, this has always been banking 100% on the idea that it is an impulse purchase, and people just use the time they have to browse around and purchase on such impulses. But the big question is if that is really still the reality of customer behavior. And if we look at some of the most recent data, we believe that it is not. The average American now spends nearly 4 hours daily on their smartphone. In Europe, it's approaching 4.5 hours. 25% of all e-commerce sales are made on mobile in Europe now, whereas in China, it's already approaching 75%. Of course, them being a mobile-first nation, the percentages are just incredible coming from there. And if we're looking at the travel retail market, which when you look at the bottom line, seems to still be growing, the reality is that it's actually continuously declining in spend per head. And that is due to, and the reason why it's still growing as a pie is that we have explosive passenger growth year over year for the past years, which is definitely a blessing for the world's airports. Can be a curse when it comes to capacity management, but it has shown that the spend per passenger is not a guaranteed number that airports can rely on anymore, and that it is continuously declining. But if you're looking at the same passengers that are only spending $8.27 per flight leg on average in 2017, these same passengers actually end up spending $540 in other places online and more than $6,000 in retail outlets outside of the airport. So this is actually the spending power that these passengers have and that we can tap into, and that airports and airlines have not done an ideal job in tapping into because they rely on that 1 hour presence at the airport at the moment. Purchasing behavior at airports has changed significantly. The most recent Mindset study from 2018, Mindset is the biggest travel retail research company, has shown that 81% of all purchases at an airport are now planned in advance, with the Asian passengers definitely leading the way by a substantial portion. Only 19% of all purchases are now bought on impulse. What does that tell us? That basically tells us that the way that retail outlets have been designed to drive impulse spend have been wrong. They have focused on the small percentage of passengers that they can convert based on impulse spending. Conversion into duty-free and retail stores at airport has never exceeded 25% of total tax. And so that shows that there's a significant potential being left untapped completely. A new Gartner study from 2018 has shown that 79% of all purchasing decisions that we make as human beings are now influenced by online search. So we no longer get excited about a product and what to buy by a billboard or by a TV ad. It is primarily driven through online usage. And so it's actually a break of media to try to convert people that get inspired about buying something online to go into a store to buy it. The natural way is now to buy it online as well. And this is where airports have a significant potential to change the way that they're doing business by digitalizing these aviation revenues into an online marketplace. And some of the airports around the world have already started looking into this as a possibility. And the first one that we have had the honor and pleasure to do such a huge digitalization project with has been Frankfurt Airport. So I would like to show you a little video on what we have done there.
This is the Frankfurt Airport. Every day, 160,000 passengers hurry to catch their flight. Like Michael. An hour ago, he realized he'd forgotten to buy his wife an anniversary gift. Normally, this would be problematic, but this airport is not a normal airport. Here's what he did. On the cab over, he pulled out his phone and brought up the Fraport app, ordered some fancy stuff. His order was sent to Heinemann's in Terminal 1, where it was quickly put together. Now he's headed to his gate, and so is his order. It's hot on Michael's heels, arriving right when he's about to board. Pretty cool, huh? But this is just one story in the tale of how AOE built one of the most comprehensive omnichannel experiences in the world. This is Kai Schmidhuber, head of digital at the Frankfurt Airport.
Unsere Geschäftspartner zahlen keine fixe Miete, sie zahlen an uns einen umsatzabhängigen Beitrag.
So when the retailers make money, the airport makes money. Oh, did we mention this is also the largest shopping mall in Germany?
Und über den Weg sind wir zum Thema E-Commerce gelangt.
They needed to find an expert they could partner with. This is Kian, founder and CEO of AOE.
As a passenger, you're typically only exposed to a limited amount of stores on your way to your plane. With our OM3 suite, you are now able to order from stores that might be in a different gate or in a different terminal altogether, and you can actually earn and burn loyalty points on virtually everything.
So how does this whole omni-channel thing work? Say you're stuck in a boring business meeting, like this guy. Why not do a little shopping before you catch your flight back to Oslo? The biggest challenge for e-commerce and fulfillment at airports is that there is only a very short window of opportunity, and AOE's OM3 platform is currently the only solution that can react to flight delays and gate changes in real time. Take this passenger. As she arrives at security, she gets a notification that her flight has been delayed. Luckily, she can use her Frankfurt loyalty reward points to treat herself to a free dinner while she waits. I hear the schnitzel is nice.
Unser Hauptziel ist es, die gesamte Customer Journey von der Anreise über die Anwesenheit hier am Flughafen bis zur Abreise digital zu begleiten.
Like, say you're walking past the caviar house and decide to pop in for a little wine tasting before your flight. Full-bodied. Pull out your phone and order a couple of bottles to be sent home.
Another example would be, I come home from holiday, I don't have any groceries.
While on your flight, order some eggs and bacon. Heck, throw in some cookies. You deserve it. Once you've gone through baggage, they're ready for you to take home.
What's really special about the solution is that it's one of the first true multi-retailer, multi-channel, multi-everything sort of solution that you can use across a variety of platforms.
Like, say, a shopping mall. In other words, what AOE started in Frankfurt will soon change the way we all shop and travel in the future.
So as you can see, Frankfurt was really a pioneer in that field, and starting with digitalizing all of the travel retail offering and then putting a loyalty program on top of it and starting to connect all of the other services, parking and lounge and VIP service continuously over the process of several years. This has been a first for an airport to attempt something like that. And the first results have been very promising. Of course, for an airport to, for the first time becoming a B2C company, where airports classically are mainly B2B companies, definitely poses multiple challenges, but the successes we've seen so far are very, very promising. We've seen a customer growth rate that was 62% above the business plan. We now have more than 300,000 loyalty signups, where we started from zero, obviously. Out of these loyalty members, we are seeing an additional spend per year of 90 euros, whereas the average spend per passenger at Frankfurt is below 4 euros. A repurchase rate of 30%, and one of the most exciting pieces of data is that the average basket increase we're seeing on our digital marketplace is 780% to what it is in offline retail. So online doesn't only encourage people to buy more, the ticket sizes are also bigger, the repurchasing is more often, and it drives a lot of additional spend. And you're going to be seeing a lot of data in this webinar, so I just wanted to let you know that we are recording this and all the registrants have access to replay it at any time. Since you don't have the ability to ask questions in the middle of the webinar, you have the ability to go back and look at it later on, since I will be sharing a lot of relevant data, I believe. We are now seeing that in Frankfurt we have an average basket value that exceeds 400 euros. And every day we roughly have 200 new loyalty members that sign up. So this is a continuous process, and we are currently seeing a year-over-year, this number has just come in yesterday, so I don't have it in the slide deck, of 94% year-over-year growth on our digital platform. And if you've seen how many of the European airports are suffering on the retail side, these are very, very promising results. And what is being driven by such an e-commerce marketplace is also very unusual spend. And this is what makes it so interesting, because products that people might usually not buy at an airport because they're not typical impulse purchases are now being bought from the airport. For example, we sold over 50,000 euros worth of Leica cameras in the first 2 quarters last year. And of course, these are not products that a lot of people just buy on impulse when they see them. We've had a single order of premium wine from Mouton Rothschild that exceeded 8,000 euros. So it's definitely driving some very unusual spend. One of the next projects and rollouts that we did shortly after Frankfurt was Heathrow, obviously being the biggest hub in Europe, the top shopping airport in the world for 10 years running. Heathrow has had a major focus on how to improve the shopping experience, how to create an omni-channel experience. And what we've done at Heathrow is to take this whole shopping experience to the next level by creating a marketplace that primarily focuses on luxury, and the patterns and the spend that we're seeing come out of that is truly exciting. We have another video to show you some of the details.
Heathrow Airport has a long-term vision to deliver a seamless digital retail experience for its passengers, from home, en route to the airport, and once they arrive. It's one of the most complex challenges airports around the world face as they take on the threat of e-commerce whilst trying to benefit from the opportunities it presents. Heathrow's partnership with AOE is at the heart of building seamless end-to-end experiences for passengers. Underpinned by AOE's powerful omni-channel multi-merchant marketplace suite, OM3, the improved digital marketplace for the airport's 300-plus brands and retailers is accessed through its online store, Heathrow Boutique. It has already started to bridge the gap between retail and digital in a meaningful way. Heathrow isn't alone. Frankfurt, Auckland, and the first airlines have already started rolling out AOE's innovative solution. Since the highly successful launch of the updated Heathrow Boutique in March 2018, the airport plans to rapidly extend the product offer. Passengers are contacting the support team in the hundreds daily to ask about more products yet to be listed. This positive feedback is rapidly accelerating plans to increase the range to include 40 additional retailers by the end of the year. Much of the revenue is from high-end luxury, fashion, spirits, and consumer technology goods. Many of the most popular pre-orders are top-of-the-line Swiss watches, electronics, including Apple products, and DSLR cameras. Recent research clearly shows that the majority of travelers have already made the decision to buy and have identified that getting their choice at the airport is a cost-efficient and convenient way to do so. They're using the platform to research and reserve luxury items. This emphasis on luxury goods is reflected in an average basket value of nearly £400 or $515 and growing. And that's about 5 times Heathrow's retail average. Heathrow Boutique is built on a multi-brand focus approach, so each brand can control their visuals on the site. Many premium brands, like Mont Blanc, have their own branded shop-in-shop that is simple and intuitive to navigate. Click Reserve, add your flight details, and in seconds, it's yours. And then pick it all up at the collection point. A wide range of payment options and fulfillment possibilities will be added in the next phases. With excellent feedback from both the airport and customers and a very accelerated return of investment, it's just the first phase launch of a much broader digitalization program that is designed to grow Heathrow's digital revenues and contribute a significant portion of the airport's total commercial revenues. As Heathrow Airport's Chris Annan says, this is just the beginning.
So taking shopping to the next level has definitely been the focus for Heathrow, and the results that we are seeing are definitely underlining that focus. We've seen an increase in basket value of over 500%, which is now above £420 average online basket value. And if you're looking at the top sellers at the marketplace, those are also some very interesting and unique figures. For example, we have seen, oh, sorry, I skipped one too far. We have seen the top selling product is actually a £35,000 Jaeger Le Coultre watch, which you can't actually buy anywhere online. And so customers are finding out about it through Google and other ways that you can buy this at Heathrow at a very competitive price. And the Heathrow boutique is actually currently one of the top luxury watches shops in all of the UK. So that is definitely helping drive some very interesting traffic in that direction. The most sold brand on the store is actually Bulgari. So again, shows the focus on luxury. And a lot of airports in the past have been wondering, why their duty-free reserve and collect, that maybe their duty-free vendor or their concessionaire have been offering as a website somehow linked from the website, why that is not showing the results. And when we're looking at the product breakdown of what we are selling in which category at Heathrow, you can get an idea of why reserve and collect for kind of commodity duty-free products is not really what excites people to shop online. We're seeing 56% of all purchases come in the category high-end electronics, so electronics that cost more than £500, such as iPhones, iPads, DSLR cameras, and so on. We have 24% of all sales coming from luxury watches, 9% coming from luxury fashion, 7% is coming from others, such as luggage and convenience items, and only 4% is actually coming from core duty-free. Of course, some of that has to do with which products get listed by which retailers. So the duty-free ones, more of the high-end premium products are also to be listed. This will definitely have an effect, but it shows you what people are truly interested in are the high-end products, the rare items, the ones where authenticity and availability is crucial to passengers, and not the ones that they consider a commodity that they can buy at any airport they go through and that any airport will always have in store. By the way, there have already been quite a few questions answered. I just wanted to remind you we will read and answer several of the questions. Probably we won't have time to answer all of them at the end of the session, but please keep posting answers and we will questions, and we will go through as many as possible in the time that we have. A third example that I want to mention is Auckland Airport, and many of you might not know Auckland Airport because it's virtually on the other side of the earth in New Zealand. But Auckland Airport is one of the most progressive and innovative airports in the world, and they have been making some serious strides in their digitalization efforts, but also in their non-aviation revenue efforts. And something that I want to focus on in this regard today is something very unique that we have launched in New Zealand. We have built a multi-channel, multi-retailer marketplace called The Mall in Auckland as well, similar to the Heathrow Boutique and the Frankfurt Shopping and others. But what is very unique in Auckland is that we've also built an integration into more than 200 downtown retailers in Auckland that can now, for the first time, sell fully tax-free products to passengers that are flying out of the country after their shopping trip. And we have productized this solution and believe that this will significantly revolutionize how tax refunding happens around the world. We will have a little video for you to understand how this process works exactly.
Downtown tax-free shopping is time-consuming and a hassle for passengers. The current tax refund procedures in place for retailers and airports involve many different offline processes, paperwork, and waiting in long lines. The OM3 Logistics Portal by AOE is the world's first and only true end-to-end solution that fully digitalizes the on- and off-airport retail logistics processes. and makes off-airport tax-free shopping completely seamless for passengers. The OM3 Logistics Portal is a multi-channel digital solution which combines a host of great features and benefits for passengers, retailers, and airports, all in one integrated software platform. To understand how the OM3 Logistics Portal works, let's take a look at the following example. Mrs. Lee is on a ski trip in Switzerland. She wants to bring home a Swiss luxury watch for her husband, but dreads the long queue and paperwork at customs. With the OM3 Logistics Portal, Mrs. Lee can now shop tax-free and hassle-free downtown by simply showing her passport and boarding pass to the retailer. She only pays the tax-free price, therefore never having to claim a tax refund with high fees at the airport without so much as a form to fill. The retailer enters the information into the system, which generates a digital collection authorization sent directly to Mrs. Lee's mobile phone and adds it to the pickup queue for the airport courier. The parcel is tracked continuously through all stages, such as retailer, aviation security, and collection point, and documents all necessary information for customs and operational procedures. At the collection point, service staff receives the parcel and stores it. The OM3 Logistics Portal manages not only the storage location of each parcel, but also consolidates multiple purchases of one passenger automatically, even with products bought on the airport's e-commerce platform. When Mrs. Lee collects her parcel, she simply shows a barcode to the service staff, who can then find the exact location of the parcel within the storage unit to pick it up easily and hand it to Mrs. Lee. Now Mrs. Lee can sit back and relax before her flight, or enjoy shopping and eating at some of the fantastic offerings at the airport. The blazing fast processes throughout lead to significantly less time and queues for the passengers, ultimately leading to a much improved customer shopping experience. For the first time ever, airports can empower retailers to offer direct, tax-free shopping in off-airport outlets while passing on bigger savings to the passenger. Learn more about OM3 at www.aoe.com/OM3.
So as you can see, a completely new concept of how airports can leverage the shopping that would usually pass by them completely by partnering with retailers with very little investment on their side. In essence, for Auckland Airport, the return of investment of this solution has been in less than 3 months, although it has been a significant software implementation and rollout project. Because all of this purchasing that is now happening downtown as a true tax-free purchase is being handled by the airport. The retailers pay the airport a concession fee for providing that service, and it's a win-win-win situation for all sides because passengers can for the first time do true tax-free shopping versus a tax refund, whereas most of you know half of the refund is actually eaten up by fees from the refund operators and conversion into the other currency and so on. Just to give you a few of the KPIs of what this solution entails, with a very little collection point that is only 40 square meters of size, we're now handling 20,000 packages being delivered to the airport every month and then picked up at that collection point. Most of the sales, as you can see, are coming again, similarly to Heathrow, from fashion and high-end jewelry purchases, watches, etc. The breakdown is pretty clear in that regard. That it's primarily driven by high-end purchases. We have an average basket value that exceeds 2,500 New Zealand dollars, so very, very significant. And just some additional KPIs are that the average wait time has gone down to 90 seconds. When you think about how long people actually spend in tax refund lines at your airport, the average globally is currently at about 18 minutes, which is the last piece of data that we received. But it can also take up to 45 minutes, an hour, and you very well know what kind of impact that has on the dwell time of these passengers that tend to be the ones that like to purchase stuff at the airport too. But if they spend most of the time in waiting lines at tax refund, this is dwell time that simply and plainly gets killed for the airport without very little kickback coming from the tax refund operators to the airports. So this is a significant potential for airports to change the way that tax-free shopping can be facilitated by the airport. In fact, we now have every month more than 10 parcels where the average transaction value is over $50,000. And even if the airport just takes a single-digit concession fee on these transactions, there are so many hundreds of millions of dollars in transactions that can happen through that scheme that it's still a significant bottom line for the airport. In fact, the biggest product that we handled through this platform in Auckland so far was a $1.2 million watch. Saving 15% on that is, of course, something quite significant for the purchaser, and getting a nice concession fee on that is also very significant for the airport. So what we believe very strongly is that airports have been attempting to become shopping malls and marketplaces for services and products for many, many years. And the time has now come to take that a step further and become real, true digital marketplaces where all of the services and offerings of the airport can be exposed to the passengers through a convenient user interface across multiple channels, whether it's mobile, the app, on the website, and through third-party channels via APIs such as the airline apps, booking websites, Google, etc., and to really put the airports in a position where anything and everything that can be sold by the airport to their passengers is virtually just one click away. And so what we have started doing at all of these airports through our OM3 solution that we have built over the last 4 years is to digitalize every single one of these revenue streams into a very unique passenger experience that is primarily targeted at driving these non-aviation revenues while providing ease and convenience to the passengers. And such a market ecosystem can be easily explained by a kind of three-layered architecture. And basically, at the top, you see the touch points, and the touch points can be multiple. It can be via voice APIs to be ready for ordering via Alexa or Siri or other modern voice API channels. It's via mobile APIs and mobile SDKs to integrate into other mobile apps, because the airport app, as you know, can only derive a very limited amount of traffic. You need to be ready to integrate into partners. More and more airlines are leaving the in-flight shopping business. That offers a huge opportunity to partner with them and let them sell your airport's products on your behalf for a commission fee. Providing these services via APIs so that travel booking sites like booking.com or Ctrip or again the airlines can book these services and products directly without ever having to visit your airport's e-commerce website is another very, very important channel. The actual airport marketplace that we provide is essentially a unified experience for shopping services and payment and loyalty across all of the different services that each airport can provide. And as that is different from airport to airport, it is completely plug and play and flexible to integrate any sort of services, retailers, partners, suppliers, and additional ancillary revenue streams that the airport can provide, and therefore continuously advancing that marketplace to really provide anything and everything that the airport can provide to its passengers. And if you think about it, airport websites have had a primary reason to exist in the past 50 years, which has been that passengers come to the site to look at flight information. They look when the flights have landed, they look when the flights are departing, they want to see if there's a delay and so on. This is the primary usage of airport websites. With the omnipresence of Google, Siri, voice-activated devices, and so on, these airport websites will continue to decline in relevance because you can get that information on from so many different sources now that airport websites have to become much more transactional portals that really deliver value to the passengers rather than just information. And this is our ultimate target for the OM3 suite. And pretty much everyone in the industry, all the researchers, the big airports, concessionaires, and so on, agree that this is starting to have a significant impact on the industry, that the passenger behavior that has changed so significantly is being captured efficiently through such means, and that this is the future of non-aviation revenues for the airports, to continue to build on them and essentially to protect them from further disruption. So this comes to the end of my presentation today, and I'm very happy to answer some of the questions that were put in our channel today. And thank you very much for watching already, and looking forward to hear from you more in the future.
Thank you, Kian and Adil, for your excellent presentation. Before we move on to our live question and answer session, I'd like to invite you to provide us with some feedback on today's webinar. In a moment, a poll will appear on your screen asking you to rate the webinar. If you could take a moment to provide your feedback, that would be much appreciated. So we now have pleasure to introduce our question and answer session, where today's speakers will answer your questions. Don't forget you can still submit your questions using the Ask a Question section situated below the player. So let's take a look at the first question. The Frankfurt Airport case is interesting. Could you also share the significance of the online channel versus the offline channel?
I'm not 100% sure what the question refers to, but of course, the online channel is still only a small portion of what the offline channel generates. If you're looking at different airports, that percentage varies depending on the maturity of the airport. We have seen some airports that are doing digital commerce for longer already, such as Incheon in Korea or Changi in Singapore, that are already hitting the double-digit percentage in how much of the revenue is being generated through e-commerce. So we've seen like 11 and 15% respectively. In Frankfurt and at Heathrow, being earlier in this cycle, and of course also the propensity to spend digitally still being lower than in Asia over here, we are still in the single-digit percentages, in the approaching the 5% of total non-aviation revenues. But what we're seeing is that essentially we're growing by close to 100% per year. So, you know, it's definitely a continuously growing process.
Okay, thank you for that. So the next question, what type of passengers tend to use online shopping for airports? Is it evenly distributed or tends to be frequent flyers only?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So it really depends on the categories quite a lot. Frequent flyers tend to buy different services and categories than tourists. So for example, if you're taking the Heathrow case, most of the high-end purchases actually come from foreigners, both Asian and Russian and South American and European. But most of the smaller ticket item, electronics, and also service products, for example, things like Heathrow Express, etc., are very much driven by the frequent flyers who use the airport frequently and therefore know that these are services available and are convenient to access. So depending on your airport's footprint, it's important to map the offering to the demographic of your audience and also to direct it accordingly to the different channels. So an e-commerce marketplace doesn't mean that it's just one site where you have to do everything. It can ultimately have multiple entry points, multiple user experiences and design experiences to drive the different types of travelers. So on the frequent flyer side, the goal is mainly to make them spend anything at all, because many of them don't spend anything apart from buying a coffee. And on the premium shopping travelers, the goal is to really expose the entire footprint of the airport's retail offering to the passengers.
Okay, thank you. Do you see a future where reward points, such as Heathrow rewards points, could be used for car rental?
The short answer is absolutely. Of course, it's always a question of what each airport's business case is and how they work with their partners. But essentially, the value of reward points are to use them for anything and everything that the airport can offer directly or indirectly through partners. For example, you can already now transfer the Heathrow reward points into Miles and More points if you are a Miles and More or Lufthansa loyalty member. From our point of view, loyalty points are a currency, and the more universally usable they are, the more valuable that currency is. Some airports might be too small to run their own loyalty program, but that's not a problem. Then you simply partner with an existing loyalty program that's strong at your airport. If you are, for example, at an airport that has 20 million passengers, a loyalty program might not be cash flow positive for you, but you probably have a hub airline, and many of the flyers will be in the loyalty program of that airline. So then a partnership with them might make a lot of sense. So either way, loyalty programs are a great way to drive spend, and especially now in times of GDPR, it's actually a way to be allowed to collect data on your passengers and market to your passengers in a more sophisticated way than you could do without them having signed up for a loyalty program.
Okay, thank you. So another question here. If the shopping is online, why does it need to be connected to an airport and not the destination or the home address?
Well, of course, the primary reason why it is connected to the airport is because it can be tax and duty-free shopping. The moment you do home delivery, you lose that major advantage completely. There are some retailers in some countries that have started doing home delivery, but this is always a tax-paid purchase then, and therefore, of course, the savings are not as significant as they are when you're buying from the airport. And on top of that, airports receive much higher margins from the retailers because they're selling to these premium purchasers, which travelers are still considered premium consumers to most of the brands in the world. And therefore, doing a home delivery, you then end up competing with an Amazon, which is, of course, extremely difficult on logistics efficiency and scale and so on. So the unique USP for the airport is to be able to do that tax-free and duty-free.
Okay, thank you. You touched on this point a bit earlier, but how can smaller-sized airports tap into affordable digitalizing methods?
Yeah, of course, for smaller airports, it is more challenging because making an investment into a major digital marketplace is, of course, something that is more difficult for a smaller airport to realize. But again, it depends on a lot of factors. Auckland Airport, by all standards, would be considered a very small airport with 18 million passengers. Nevertheless, they have managed to capitalize on their passengers and drive spend to become one of the highest spending airports in the world. So it does depend a lot on what you can achieve as an airport in terms of footprint and retail and experience and so on. Nevertheless, if you are a small airport, maybe primarily domestic, then building a huge e-commerce marketplace might not be the right way, and you should start by doing more of the convenience services like pre-booking parking, selling lounge, selling fast track, and so on, and then start growing it from there, because a pure retail marketplace might not have the return of investment as quickly as you would like it to be.
Okay. Referring to the airport marketplace and referencing Auckland Airport, why would any passenger go through the airport marketplace to shop downtown?
No, that's not how it works. So it's two different channels. So the airport marketplace is for all the retailers that are at the airport. So of course, duty-free retailers, but also souvenirs, electronic, luxury, fashion, etc. On top of that, the airport has partnered with 200 downtown retailers. The overlap of products between the two marketplaces is limited because, of course, a smaller airport cannot justify having a Hermes store or a Prada store or a Chanel store at the airport. So a lot of the purchases that happen downtown are from products and ranges that don't exist at the airport. In order to purchase, you don't need to go to the airport marketplace. You simply buy downtown, show your boarding pass and passport. The products are then delivered to the airport and you pick them up at the collection point. So there's no need to go to the airport marketplace if you're shopping downtown. This is an additional possibility, and we can combine the e-commerce orders with your downtown orders in one convenient pickup at the collection point.
So further on from that, what are the timescales? For example, could a passenger purchase from downtown the day or the night before the flight? On average, how long would it then take to get into Auckland to pick up the package?
That's of course different at each airport and in each city, and depends on congestion and availability of courier services, etc., etc. But in Auckland, the cutoff time is 4 hours, so you can basically shop in the morning and fly out in the evening, and the products will all be ready at your airport. One of the biggest retailers that participates in that downtown scheme is the DFS store in Auckland, and they typically have entire bus groups of tourists that come shopping there, and then all of their purchases have to arrive at the airport before they do themselves. So it's very much a timely and real-time focused operation.
In the presentation, you mentioned 20,000 parcels a month for Auckland Airport again. Is that just for Auckland, or does that tend to be across all airports?
No, this is only Auckland Airport.
Okay, on to the next question. What is the return policy for products that are bought in case a customer doesn't like them when they collect them, both from home or collection points at the terminal? Is it common to all products regardless of the shop? Or who manages the returns policy for each airport or each shop independently?
Yeah, very good question. It's actually one of the biggest advantages of an airport doing e-commerce, because as probably many of you know, an average return ratio at a classic e-commerce platform like Amazon or Zappos or other channels is up to 35%. So shipping costs becomes one of the biggest P&L loss items of any e-commerce company. However, at an airport, the return rate is almost nil. The reason is twofold. Firstly, when people arrive at the collection point and they want to then return an item because they have decided they don't like it anymore, they simply return it directly at the collection point. So there's no shipping cost needed anymore. If it's from an airport retailer, the items are returned to that retailer through the normal runner network in place. If it is from a retailer downtown, it gets returned to that retailer downtown through the courier service when they deliver items from that retailer the next time. So the cost of returns are extremely limited, and the percentage of returns that we're seeing so far are under 5%. Additionally, once people have actually left the country, the eagerness to return something is quite low. We're seeing extremely small return rates on that. Most of the airports that we're working with are providing the ability to ship something to a centralized return address of the airport. In that case, the shipping has to be paid by the passenger, though, and so that service is not being utilized to a very large extent.
Okay, thank you for that. How do passengers of different age groups adapt to this digitization?
Obviously, there are significant differences in the way people shop. I don't want to say that an e-commerce marketplace is only being used by millennials and people under 40, but it is the majority, because this is the kind of shopping behavior that millennials prefer and that they're used to. In fact, there was a study conducted by Mindset last year that found that 73% of all lower tier millennials said that they expect omni-channel shopping experience at an airport where they can pre-order, prepay, see the entire offering beforehand, and then still have the ability to go into the store to pick it up, to try it on, or to return it. So the omni-channel focus is something that millennials now expect, and so this is definitely primarily driven by them. However, we do also, especially in the luxury segment, see orders from age groups above the millennials, but that is not the majority.
Okay. If there are two different consumer electronics shops in one airport, and I wanted to shop for a specific headphone, for example, via the airport app, which shop would offer me the headphone via the app? How does it work?
That depends if they're two different retailers or just two different shops of the same retailer. If they're two different shops of the same retailer, then whichever shop is closer would be the one delivering to the collection point and used for the pickup. If there are two different retailers that are selling the same product, in the worst case at two different prices, we have the ability to do two different things. And airports that we work with have chosen both options in the past. One option is to choose the marketplace approach, similar to Amazon. So you see the cheapest price and you see which retailer it's sold from, but you can choose to buy it from another retailer, either for the same price or a different price. If it is the same price, we can randomize which retailer gets shown so that there's a fair share between the two. What some other airports have chosen, though, is that they split the online listed product ranges by retailers. So, for example, in Auckland, there are actually, it's a unique situation that not so many airports have. There are actually two duty-free retailers that have a concession, essentially one on the left and one on the right when you arrive at the airport from overseas. So what they have chosen in Auckland is that they split it by category. For example, one retailer gets the beauty and cosmetics and liquor, and the other one gets tobacco and electronics, just to give you an example. So in order to avoid it being the same products for the same prices from two different retailers across a lot of different SKUs.
Okay, next question. Does AOE's platform also cover the logistics, so the warehouse management systems at Auckland, for example, or is the logistics managed by a third party with their own warehouse management system?
So the logistics for the airport are all managed by our solution. So basically the management of the collection point, the storage reconciliation, where each parcel gets stored at the collection point, the pickup and all of that, that is all driven by our software. When it comes to the retailer, of course, we integrate with the retailer's ERP or POS systems so that we can see their inventory, their stock availability and location of the stock at each of the airport stores. So it's a combination. There's normally no classic warehouse to passenger delivery. However, some of the airports are now considering building their own warehouse to store products also, especially those that the retailers cannot carry in high loads. To give you an example is, a lot of people like to buy, for example, iPads, iPhones, and laptops. There's not a huge margin on those products, but there's a lot of demand for them. So filling up shelves with them in premium real estate at the airport is always a difficult choice to make. So this could be an example where rather than keeping the products at the airport, you have them at a close-by warehouse and then drop ship them to the collection points on the day of pickup only. This way you can ensure that you have all the configurations and all of the different sizes, colors, and versions of these products available for the passengers.
Okay. The integrated consolidation of purchases seems like a great service for customers, but how is that organised with customs and with the custodian goods with diverse set of retailers?
So if you think about it from a customs point of view, essentially what we're doing with the downtown retailers is an export. So it's a pretty straightforward process. Since we're not actually paying taxes and then claiming them back, the passenger doesn't even pay the taxes in the first place. And since they only collect it airside, it is essentially like they have bought them airside. And we report this to customs through the standard export procedures that of customs in each country, which of course differs in each country. So there is an automated process in place to report to customs which products have been exported, and the airport vouches for that actual export that has happened, and that the products are only handed over to international passengers that are in fact leaving the country.
How can we integrate a rewards program that's dedicated for aviation staff of those airports in order to offer them perks like further discounts on shopping or transfer to car rentals or hotel stays?
So the way we've built the solution is that it's loyalty program agnostic. So we have all of the earn and burn logic in the platform, but what the actual loyalty program in the background is completely flexible. So whether we use our own loyalty solution to roll it out at the airport, whether we integrate with an existing one like Heathrow Rewards had from Comark, for example, or whether we integrate it with an airlines platform or even multiple loyalty solutions. That is all possible because the platform is built entirely based on plug and play and web service solutions.
If a journey is cancelled, how are the associated online purchases managed?
Very good question. So if there are two ways. In some cases, we are integrated with Amadeus and Sabre. So when a purchaser buys something from the website, in some cases we ask for the booking code to validate that they're actually flying internationally. Once we have that booking code, we are able to check if that booking code has been cancelled by asking the API again, essentially. If we do that and we see that the purchase has been cancelled, we can then basically reverse that whole process, refund the credit card or payment method of the purchaser again, and return the items back to the retailers. The same would happen if the purchaser simply doesn't show up at the collection point after a day after that flight has left. Then all the items are automatically refunded and returned to the retailer again.
Are you planning collaboration with airlines? Is AOE's platform ready to connect to airline systems in order to sell airport products during flight booking processes?
Absolutely. We are already rolling out at Singapore Airlines and Avianca as we speak. We're already live on 18 airplanes in Lufthansa integrated with the Frankfurt Airport shopping platform. The whole system has been built to facilitate what we call the quaternity of travel retail between airline, airport, retailer, and brands. So it has always been designed as a marketplace that connects all these players, and it depends on the business cases between the airports and the airlines how they want to leverage those capabilities. So in some cases, we are building a marketplace for an airline that then partners with some of the airports they fly to. In other cases, we built the marketplace for the airport, and then the airport partners with airlines for traffic acquisition, for selling on behalf of the airline, and so on. And both of those channels are able to integrate also with other channels like OTAs, for example. To give you an example of Singapore Airlines, we are integrated with Ctrip, the biggest flight booking platform in China, which 70% of all flights are booked on in China. And every time someone books a flight through Singapore Airlines, they actually see recommendations and products driven by the OM3 platform. So this is just one example of how you can sell products already at purchasing of the ticket and move up the value chain significantly rather than having to rely on people finding your airport's website before traveling.
What are the competitive advantages of airports in e-commerce? For example, returns, acquisition costs, product availability, Wi-Fi capitalization?
Yeah, I think I mentioned a few of them already, but I can elaborate a bit. Of course, one of the big ones is that the return rates are significantly lower than in a classic e-commerce environment. Another huge benefit is product availability, because only airports can essentially do absolute last-minute product delivery within an hour to a lounge, to a gate, to a collection point. because these products exist at the airport physically and don't have to be shipped from an external warehouse, especially in countries where you don't have same-day delivery available. This poses a significant advantage. A third advantage, of course, is authenticity and reputation. In many countries, people are scared to buy luxury items downtown, or even things like premium liquor, because they are worried about fakes and bootlegged items. So the airport provides a very safe environment for people to shop, because no airport would dare to sell fakes at an airport. So that definitely poses another advantage. When it comes to addressing passengers, of course, airports are the perfect ground for a digital marketplace, because they can control the Wi-Fi ecosystem, they can control the beacon ecosystem, they have all the retailers and all the partners and lounge managers and parking facilitators, etc., under management. So they can enable all of that, which no third party could do from an external point of view. The airports are the only ones that can facilitate that.
Okay, thank you very much. So unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today, but we've had a huge amount of questions sent in. So thank you to everybody who submitted a question. Any
Thank you very much.
questions will be responded to by email. So please join me in thanking Kian and Adil for their time today. And on behalf of International Airport Review and of AOE, I would like to thank you all for attending today's webinar. We hope to see you again soon.